of the workshop meeting for Vallecitos Water District on Monday, July 20th. Oh my God.
Please try to find.
And looks like we have one important discussion, and that will be outreach and communication. Unless our audience would like to speak, anyone in the public have anything to say? No, it's yours, Chris. This is really important. And
Well,
then
thank you
also-
so much for having this special workshop. So we don't do the Pledge of Allegiance at the workshops, I guess, right? We
We
go
could
right
if
past
you'd
that.
like.
No, I'm good. So we've got Katz here, and Katz was selected by the board back in the fall to come up with an enhanced outreach and communications plan. And some of the items that were completed by Katz were that customer survey, the materials audit, the key message platform, and then we have this communications plan, and that's really what we're here to talk about and finalize today, is kind of go over the communications plan and lock it in. And with me is Joe Charay and Patsy Tennyson, and Joe's going to lead us through this PowerPoint, and I'll be taking notes on comments that you have, that the board has. And with that, I'm going to bring Joe up, and he will work us through this PowerPoint. Do we need to use the alternate, or got the power, Joe?
You got the power. Well, you guys really have the power, you know that. How about that? Okay, so starting from the beginning again, and I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on the things we talked about last time that we've already got accomplished, but we'll breeze through them kind of quickly. But the purpose of the communication plan to start with is obviously of import to what we've been doing. It's one of the 6 strategic planning areas that you folks developed in your plan, and with the customer in mind, feeding back from the research, this has informed the communication plan that we put together as well. And I talked last time about the fact that you have 83% satisfaction among your customers, and also that half of them know you by name, and you might think that's a low score. That's not a low score. That's actually a high score for people to have name recognition of their water district. That's not always the case in a lot of different places. But as you might have suspected, there's a lack of knowledge of the details of what you do and also some of the services that you offer. So that's a good reason to kind of beef up communications, get a little more proactive about some things, and kind of start to focus in, I would say aggressively, but certainly proactively, on the things that you'd like to get accomplished. So that's what this is all about. You may remember this snapshot. It's really hard to see from a distance. Well, I think you have it in front of you, right? Oh, good. Where we have the red circle there, those are kind of some of the important things that we thought would resonate in terms of what's important. I mentioned the 83%. You can also look at some of the other demographics there, the number of homeowners, the people that have been in the district for an average of 8 years. That gives you some sense of the community and what it's like. So that gives you a snapshot that, again, we use as part of research and what came out of research, again, to tell us what was going on. So knowing that, and knowing what we did in terms of the research review, here are the communications objectives that we think are most important. Nothing complicated about them, pretty straightforward. We want customers to know more about what you do. We also want them to know about water issues, because water issues are extremely important these days because so much is happening in the water world. And this is not obviously indigenous to Vallecitos Water District. It's happening across the state and across the country as well. So some education can be done as we move forward aggressively on designing for you so that you can develop ongoing materials. We want to talk about things like reliability. We want to talk about things like diversity of supply. Right now, you're working hard to reduce your reliance on imported water, and you're making some really good progress there. Those are the kinds of things that we need to keep letting people know about. And also how difficult and complex it is to run a water district, because people just think they turn the tap and the water comes out. You know that. You've heard that in the community, I'm sure. So those objectives, again, stand us in good step for where we want to go. here's the audience list. We start with staff and employees because they essentially are ambassadors to the community. And so what they are thinking and knowing and bringing back home at night can be really useful to you. So that internal communications is important. The direct ratepayers, 59% of your customers are homeowners, 49% are renters. That adds up to more than 100%. I don't know how we got that statistic, but there it is. And then community and business and elected officials and so forth, all of them important. A number of them get different messages because of the kind of audience they are. We mentioned media at the bottom. Media are not a true audience, but they're a filter through which you get to your audience. So they are equally important from that standpoint as well. So here are the things that are done in the left column, and we talked about the last time. The things that are in progress and will continue for another month, maybe a month and a half or so, collateral design, and I'm going to share with you what you told us about our design work, Speakers Bureau support, and the Speakers Toolbox. So that column on the right represents the things we have yet to complete. Most of them started, and most of them kind of on their way. So here's the little table we put together based on your input from the designs that we brought to you when we presented last time. We gave you 4 different versions of a fact sheet to take a look at and pass judgment on, and 4 different versions of a PowerPoint template as well. And we appreciated your feedback on that. Normally, we wouldn't just say, all right, let's add up the numbers and that's going to be the decision. We would generally work with staff on your input and then perhaps make a decision that wasn't based on the numbers. In this case, however, there was so much interest, and you can see the scores, leaning in one direction that we think that's a good direction to go into. So fact sheet A, and I'll refresh your memory with it on the next slide, far and away had more interest, and the same thing with the PowerPoint template for template A. And they look like this, as you may recall. Now, one of the things that's going to happen here is we got a number of comments dealing with different things from color to, prefer dark or light type, that sort of thing. So we're going to take the A's, the 2 A's that led the voting, and perhaps tweak them a little bit to consider some of those things, the comments that some of you made and that some of staff made as well. But this gets us on the right road. So now we're able to continue the development of the sample collateral pieces that we talked about in our scope of work, and we'll be moving ahead aggressively on that. The other thing that is in the pipeline is the master presentation. We know this is important to you because you want to be out in the community making presentations on a regular basis. This presentation is with the staff right now for review, and it includes a couple of what we're calling modules. So you'll have your basic master presentation. Depending on the audience, you might want to bring in the module that talks about the value of water. Or you might want to bring in the module that talks about the California water situation and how the Vallecitos Water District is dealing with that. So those are the 2 additional modules that we have available now that you'll see before too long as the staff finishes their review and as we respond to that review and so forth. So that master presentation, we're on track with that. We made a commitment to have that all wrapped up for you by the middle of August, and we will make that deadline unless you all go on vacation for the next month, which you probably deserve, but I hope you don't do. So master presentation. So the rest of this now are things that the staff starts to pick up on. As we complete the short-term scope of the right-hand column that I showed you a couple of slides ago, transition becomes what is staff doing to begin to implement these ongoing activities. Those are the things we're going to walk through now, and I welcome your comments on them at any time. Any input that you have, this is a good time to register that, and we'll be taking note of that. This communication plan will be finished only when you've reviewed everything, including the things that we have left to do, and then we incorporate those things into the final draft of the communication plan. So this is a really good opportunity for you to give us your thoughts as we go along through some of these. The other thing I think it's important to point out is we're not at a starting point here. Your staff is already firing along on all cylinders. They're doing a good job. They're doing a really fine job and working hard at it. These are things that may be a little different from what they've done, or it may be that we're recommending things that they can add to and enhance, or maybe focus on a little more. But this is territory, and we like this situation where we're already finding a professional group of communications people and staff people that are not starting at the beginning. So here's some of it. Update and expand informational materials. We did the communication materials and audit report. You have seen that. That recommends a number of things in terms of changing materials. Most of that, though, is changing the design work. So as you get to the bottom of your pile of printed information, you're going to want to redesign those to have the singular look that we've developed and that we've just gone through. So the materials start to look alike. Whenever you see a piece of copy or a collateral piece from the district, it ought to be recognizable as coming from you. So that's kind of the goal of the design plan as well. It's very flexible, and that's why we're doing a couple or three pieces of collateral information to give you an idea of how this design work can work well on pretty much anything that you want to produce. So this applies to fact sheets. It applies to the PowerPoints, as we've talked about. It applies to special items, and we have a plan to show you a couple of things in that regard. One is a comment card that we invite you to take to presentations with you that will invite the audience to share their thoughts with you, and that's something that gives you a really good idea of what your audiences are thinking after you leave as well. There's such a thing as a pocket card that we've done from time to time that's pretty much the size of a business card, but again, it's got your design, and it has your website address and maybe a couple of key messages, that sort of thing. So that is ongoing as the staff continues to move forward. Those changes in design will be made and reflected on the different pieces you produce.
Just to clarify, these items, like the comment card, I like that idea. Is that something that is part of your scope, you're just recommending that to our staff to create based off of the, kind of the same format and same style that you've already proposed, or is that something that you're gonna design and then give us something that we can take to a print shop?
Yes, we're going to give you three pieces of collateral.
Okay.
One is going to be an updated FAQ, frequently asked questions, and that may be a general one, or in working with Chris, we'll decide maybe we do one on the water situation. Maybe we do one on the value of water. So that'll be one piece. The other one will be the pocket card, and that's a little larger piece, and it sometimes is called a tip piece. That might have key messages on one side. It might have conservation tips on the other side, something of that nature. That's something that you can carry with you and hand out frequently as well. So we will produce those three pieces to camera ready for you. And then the existing resources on the bottom of the current slide I'm talking to is taking a look at Splash, being able to adapt bill stuffers, other special mailings that you might do. And again, the information that you've used in the past, lots of good design work there, but none of it looks alike. So that's what's going to transition over the next several months. It might take a year to do it, because you're going to use up all of the supplies you have most likely and then get into making those changes. Media relations, we're recommending as proactive an approach as you can get to, and this is an emphasis that staff will have to determine how they accomplish that, but again, the expertise is already there. It's not a new area. But one of the things that we like to recommend is a little more proactivity if you don't already have it. Assign yourself a number of press releases that are going to be done in a given year. Assign yourself quarterly features that you're going to try to place in different publications. Work with media on an occasional facility tour, and those are very popular with media, and you can see good features coming out of that. And then advertising, maybe on occasion, we don't recommend that too often unless there's a very specific reason for it. If you were to get yourself into a situation, for instance, where you were doing a Prop 218 rate-making case, or you had a big study that was concluded that you really wanted people to know about, you might consider some advertising to get that information across. So that's, again, used wisely because it's not the most inexpensive way to go. And also, sometimes it's hard for your ratepayers to figure out why you're paying money for advertising. So we're always aware of that as well, to make sure that they feel they're getting the value for what you're doing. But it's on the agenda. Grassroots outreach. I know you do some of this already, but fairs and festivals, one of the things you can increase is sponsorship, which does not take a lot of dollars in most of these cases. I went to the Rock and Blues Festival. That was terrific. A lot of good music there, a lot of good barbecue there, a lot of room for sponsors there because they did not have much of a kind of a midway type of thing that you might see at the Spring Festival in downtown, or not downtown, but near Restaurant Row there and so forth. So that and Carlsbad Street Festival as well, which they bill as the largest street festival in the country. It's very big. You've probably been there. And having something fairly simple there, something for kids, for instance, spin for a prize or take a little test or something like that. Those things work very well. Good grassroots stuff that people then start getting a picture of what the water district does, and people also then start humanizing the district. They see people that actually work here, and they see them out in the community doing things, and that we think is a very good thing. The other thing is display signs, and again, this would follow your design concepts, and that could be lobby displays here, could be at the City Hall, it could be at libraries. Libraries love stuff. Libraries love things like bookmarks. So you could do bookmarks with conservation tips. You could do bookmarks with key messages, and you can print thousands of those for very low cost. So those kinds of displays, signage, et cetera, really a good thing. Any questions? I'm talking really fast, I feel like. Is there anything you want to talk about or get into?
Do you? Go.
Well, I was going to say, I think I'm letting you go through and then come back and make comments.
That was just fine.
Right, I
Yep.
think you're right
Okay.
on. We'll let you know.
You're not shy, right?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Well, Mike a little bit. This one will really bug you.
Okay. School outreach. You've got school outreach going on. We like that a lot. Community leader outreach. We like things like presentations to city councils periodically or other boards, even going down to Sandag occasionally, or the County Water Authority, or those audiences that are important to you that include elected officials, civic, business, community-based organizations, the Rotaries, the Chamber of Commerce, and so forth. And facilities tours we like a lot because we've done a lot of them and they're very effective. People like them, and sometimes tours can change minds when you have something that might be a little bit controversial, or maybe something that's just new. Taking people through there, taking the media through, taking elected officials through, other stakeholders, other key stakeholders, taking them around to see what a wastewater plant really looks like and how it really operates. We've seen great success in different markets from people who were skeptical to start with, but then had a big aha moment when they went through and saw how complex and how well done those kinds of facilities are. So we like that, and we like the impact of those as well. Internal communications, again, you do a good job of that already. We're looking at issues updates from time to time, and you'll have a fact sheet format that you can use with all of that material. Between the pipes is a big undertaking, and we think it's a good undertaking. Board reports, things that are going to keep you up to date, and I know Chris is hustling every 2 weeks to have something that is going to make sense for you, so that's something I think should be kept going, and I think will be kept going in terms of internal things. Digital communication, Again, regular content update on the website. One of the challenges when staff gets really busy is, what comes first? What are the priorities? Sending people to the website will be done through any publication or any piece of collateral that you make, which is exactly the right way to do it. They'll be sent to your social media sites as well, but that's why you have to keep those up. Social media engagement, and we have a little section about that in the communication plan that you have there. There are sort of traditional ways to do that, how often you should post, how often you should tweet, those sorts of things, and the kinds of messages you should be posting and tweeting, which are most effective, which are the ones that are going to get you more audience and will get your audience to come back as well. So we've got information in there as well. I just added checking out nextdoor.com. Are you familiar with it? Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's very, I live in Carlsbad, and that's very active in Carlsbad, and the city of Carlsbad is involved in it. So you'll see their posts on Nextdoor with information that residents like to get about what's going on. So nextdoor.com brings you very down into the neighborhoods themselves. So it'll carve San Marcos, and I'm sure it already has, up into small pieces where the neighbors then are talking to each other on a regular basis. A really good tool. So here's the social media expansion again, and I won't read through all of this, but you've got a couple of pages there. You've already, and I was just talking to Chris about this, you have already taken a really good step over the last couple of months of bolstering your Facebook likes by doing some Facebook advertising. A small media buy in Facebook is very effective, and in fact, Chris told me that you've moved from about 200 likes, people following you on Facebook, to about 900 now. So that's great progress. That's not something you spend a lot of money on all the time, but an occasional boost gets you going and gets you to a more mass audience that again is going to be a little more viral, people sharing with other people and so forth. So that idea we think is a really good one. Facebook and Twitter have, as you probably know, different reasons for existing. Facebook, very community-oriented, very family-oriented, but there is a place there for the city and for the district to communicate on that local basis. So continue taking advantage of that. But the one point that we always make about social media is it does not replace traditional communications. You need the newsletters, you need the bill stuffers, you need other things, direct mail occasionally, things of that sort, to make sure you've got that rounded communication profile going on. And your Facebook page refers people to the website and to other information. Your published information refers people to your Facebook page and to Twitter. So it's a big circular communications path that continues to get built up over time. And it's all very measurable. So Chris has already tuned into the measurement of what Facebook is doing. Metrics for Twitter are also available. If you decide to get into anything else like Instagram, which is a very photo-oriented type of place, that's all good as well. So there's good, I guess our caveat on social media is you have to be careful on how much energy it drains. It takes work to keep posting. It takes work to keep developing content. But the returns are not usually as large as what you're going to see with your website development or your direct contact information. So that's a good thing to know. Once you get big, if you're a rock star, if you're Justin Bieber, you have 2 million followers. That's not happening in any city in America. I can guarantee you of that. But there's really good use for social media without ignoring the other things that you're already doing. And then you'll see a table near the back of the plan there that indicates the basics of measurement, how you can look at everything you're doing and how you can measure it. Now, some of these, and one of our recommendations is let's look at all of this quarterly, because then we can make course corrections if we need to. And that's very useful as well. What's working really well that we should enhance? What's not working so well, maybe we pay less attention to that. And this will change over time as social media changes and as people get their information in different ways as well. But one of the things here that you need to be aware of is that the measurements that we're doing here are numbers, they're statistical. How many people got this message? How many people did we send this piece to? That sort of thing. And those are valuable, but they're not behavior change measures. They're not satisfaction measures. Those measures can only be done with quantitative surveys, as we did earlier this year. So periodically doing that in an annual or maybe biannual survey is sufficient. Really gives you information to know if you're staying on track. I have a recent case where the board members, a couple of them swore to me that the whole darn community thought the water was too expensive. And you know yourself, when you're out in the community, people are saying to you, you know, you guys, the water is okay, but it costs too much. Well, the research says that's not true. That's not what people believe. If you have a little noisy group of people, the people that come to the board meetings occasionally, or the people that write in and call in, that generally tends to be a negative few people. And it's really important to get that look on the outside from a quantitative survey that can be done with 400 people, but is then projectable across your whole population, so that you're really getting scientific proof of what people are saying out there and what they're believing out there. And that's back to that 83% satisfaction rating too that you have. That's a really good mark. And not only should you be proud of that, but you should base some of your decisions on that in terms of what you need to do to run the district as well as you can. So that quantitative thing is the last thing on that point, and I think that's an important one. And that's all I have to say right now until you ask me a question.
And who'd like to ask or make a comment?
Oh, sure, I'll be the first one to go. On the master presentation, which is where this whole thing launched from, are we gonna be able to see that before, I mean, as part of the review, or the way I heard it, staff is reviewing it, then we're gonna get it, and I guess we're gonna review it, and then we'll finalize it?
I think that's the plan, right?
Is that the plan?
Yep.
Mhm.
And so that's coming in the next couple of weeks?
Staff has the draft right now. And what I would anticipate, and what I've talked to Chris about, is he and staff take a look at it, make whatever corrections, additions, et cetera, they want. We will do that. We'll make those corrections and additions before you get them, so that you know it's been reviewed already, and then it'll come to you for your review.
Stuff can be added, deleted, switched, moved around. We just want to get the first good cut at it, because again, you know, you guys talk about it to the public, we live, eat, and breathe it every day, so we can make sure there's the right points in there. And so we'll get the right facts and the right stuff in there. Then you guys can say, well, what about this, add this, we'd like to, whatever you want to do at that point.
All right.
But we'd like to bring you something that's fairly well completed, not 10%, and then we go through 7 reviews. We'd like to get you one that's way up there, 70, 80%.
All right.
I appreciate that. Did you have a question, Director Elbert?
Well, I don't know, after,
No,
I've got some comments.
Well, you can do comments as
Okay.
well. Are you finished? Were you done?
I didn't know if Jim was speaking.
No, that's the hot button I had.
The hot button.
Okay. I had a couple comments on the key messages, and on key message number 5, it is explained in there on the purchase, the direct purchase of desal water and the purchase of water from a Livenhain, but I'd like to see it more emphasized as something that we're doing outside of our water wholesaler. So I think that's important to better,
Okay.
to
Yes,
better
okay.
emphasize it. Much like the water authority emphasizes, you know, their local supplier reliability
So we're
apart
doing
from
local
metropolitan.
independence,
Yeah.
local development.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's done on page 11, it's done with a little pie chart at the bottom and the description up above, but I'd like to
Okay.
see a little more emphasis
Good, that's a good point.
on, you know, on supplies that are being done outside of our water wholesale.
Mhm.
And then I think, under key message number 3, it might be appropriate there, but maybe under our current drought measures, I'd like to see something that addresses, the common question that comes up is,
you have a page you're talking about?
Page 10.
Page 10.
Thank you.
Communication plan.
Thank you
yeah.
very much.
A common question that comes up is, why are we still allowing new meters to be set in these times of drought? And I think that would be a good point to make maybe under our current drought measures, to explain that, that may come with a higher
Yeah,
level
and
of.
It sounds like that maybe would belong in the Q and A section.
Okay, yeah, that would
As
be
opposed
good.
to you raising the question, we'll put that in the Q and A and have that
Yeah.
in the message plan
Okay.
itself.
Great idea. Any more?
That's all I had.
Director Snell, did you have any?
Yeah, just, I guess kind of maybe a better question for staff. So just trying to get my head around how this is all gonna end up kind of closing out. So this document here is gonna go kind of into the district's
It gives,
plans and
it gives staff
documents and-
direction, we update as needed, probably on an annual basis.
Okay. And is that something that you think that we can be brought back to the board on an annual basis so we can kind
Oh,
of look to see
absolutely.
how we're doing?
Yeah, and I think what we may do is, you may recall, when you first got on the board, we were doing the monthly or quarterly capital facility update. James came in and I was doing an update on the business plan, and you guys started to, eyes roll back in your head and said, can we do some of these on an annual basis and not quarterly? So I think this would be a good one to roll right into the business plan on an annual review with the board, so we could very easily do that.
Okay. Has the district ever done, I know we do our water academy for the public, but have you ever done a media, district tour? Or we just specifically?
I know
reach out
we've
media?
tried over the years to get, we did an independent one with all of our local city council. You remember, the board here came with the city council, and we did 3 tours. We did that separately. I know when we've done them in the past, since Chris was here, maybe since you've been here, we do offer it to the press, to other public agencies. We just don't get a lot of participation to get them coming to it.
But we
did
tried.
get, Sheriff San Marcos came.
Yeah.
They had that nice article.
We did, yes.
So that was the good hit that we got.
And we might be able to do a smaller tour and specifically target them. And I think that's what Joe's saying as well. That would be very easily done as well.
Well, and I think with the tremendous interest in water right now of all kinds, and, you just had a water summit here that was very good. There's interest with the media. They're writing about it all the time, and so this is a good time if you come up with the right topic that makes sense for what's this district doing that's changing the equation for its customers. And I think your reduction of reliance on state waters is a really good story as an example.
Yeah, but we can target a smaller tour specifically to get to the media.
I think we'll get a better response. The media likes to have just kind of one thing to bite at a time and not give up a whole day for
Sure.
Water Academy tour.
Yeah.
Yes, Dr. Meyer.
And I think towards that end, I think our Meadowlark recycling facility, heavy topic right now, that tour alone for the public officials and the media combined might be a good selling opportunity.
Sure. Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
And although we don't have a lot of, especially newsprint up here in North County with the North County Times going away, we do, you mentioned Share, which I think is a great asset for the community. It's something that we can probably work with and kind of tailor more of a message versus kind of being a news story.
Mhm.
But also the paper would be another possibility. I think we could give Lyle
Lyle?
Davis, we give them a tour and anybody
Mhm.
from his team.
Yeah.
And have them do something similar as well, because they actually have a little bit of a niche, I believe, and having used them myself with kind of the more senior community, the mobile homes and those
Yeah.
folks. So they really enjoy that publication. So it's a good way to get to them where we might not be able to get to them with Facebook or Twitter and other things like that. And then lastly, I like the idea of doing the Carlsbad Street Fair. I know that we've done the San Marcos one at least once, maybe twice.
Quite often.
Or quite often. I attended this year with some members from staff, and I thought the feedback from the public was really good. And I don't know off the top of my head what percentage of our customers are in the San Marcos, or I'm sorry, in the Carlsbad city limits, but I think it's fairly significant.
It was around 9 to 11%, I think,
Yeah.
that southwest corridor down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And that's the high rent area, I might say, La Costa.
so I think that something to consider. So,
That item right there where you mentioned next door, that's the item I was telling you that the neighbors, so we actually use that in my community.
Mhm.
And so I just joined now, I'm getting all kinds of cool stuff.
Ah.
Most of it I don't want, but I'm getting all kinds of cool stuff.
Okay. That's all I got.
Well, I just had a few little comments when I was reading through it, so I'm just gonna start kind of on page one and throw a few things out, and you can do with them what you want. On the very first thing, when we were talking about our purposes, it's not specifically said in there, but I'm hoping, and maybe I'm the only one on the board that's feeling this, but I'm hoping that also part of the message we're putting across is not just the importance of conservation, but that we're looking for that, a permanent mindset change about how we use water and what our landscape is like. And I think that's certainly become critical of the whole state. But when I read through it, I thought I didn't specifically see a way of valuing water-wise landscaping, water-wise usage itself. So I noticed that, yes.
And the term that being bandied about is water ethic.
Water
Yeah,
ethics.
yeah.
Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go.
And that, I know the County Water Authority is using those kinds of message. This is a permanent way of life.
Mhm.
And in fact, we have that built into your master presentation right now, that kind of language. So we can put that in the messaging also.
Okay, however you feel, when I looked at that, I didn't see it as a prominent goal within there. That's
Mhm.
just when I read it. I also thought, on page one in the paragraph under its second paragraph under challenging research findings, we have written in there we're talking about the increasing challenge of considering the drought, but also in terms of the high cost of imported water. And I thought, somehow in there, I hope we're also, it's not just the high cost of what's really our downfall with the imported water is it's not reliable.
Reliability.
Because there are a lot of people who know that when we start our desal, we're paying more now than we do for imported water. So I just wanted for us to be stressing the importance of the reliability. It's not just about the money, it's that
Diversifying.
diversify, but I wanted that word because we didn't mention it, and it's not, and then we have a lack of diversity. But I think they need to understand the diversity is important for reliability, not necessarily gonna make the money, our water cheaper right now.
Right, okay.
It's not.
It goes to what Director Alphar's saying,
Yeah.
local control and local development.
Yeah. So I'm just kind of going through my things here, so, and then flipped ahead, and on page 5, and we had what was at stake. Did I miss somewhere, we talked about infrastructure, but we talked about water, and I didn't see us including wastewater. Am I assuming we're also going to explain we're paying for wastewater infrastructure?
Yes.
I
And
just-
Dennis, that was a point that you
That's
made.
the point I've been making through the whole
Yeah.
thing. We need to duplicate the emphasis on the wastewater aspect as well.
Okay,
Absolutely.
well, I'm sure you guys have them all. These are just what went through.
No,
No,
this
that's
is-
a good point. That's what
Yeah.
I
Good.
noticed
No,
was
we
lacking as
appreciate
well.
this.
Um,
The wastewater part of it, we've wrestled a little bit with it. It's in the master presentation significantly. And we set that up to be maybe 15 or 20 minutes at the most. And that leaves some time for Q&A. That's the normal amount of time you'd want to be delivering. And wastewater, I think, is well explained there, so we didn't do a separate module on it because we think we've got that covered. But Dennis has made it clear that these are the two services, it's drinking water and wastewater, they're tied together, especially since wastewater is tied into recycling. I mean, that's a really major thing.
And I think it's important that our ratepayers understand if you're comparing prices with another district, you need to know if that district is doing recycle or reclaiming and do they do wastewater
Mhm.
or not? Because you start comparing, and unless you have those facts, you can say, well, they're just in it. I think it's real important. I don't know if we need a separate module, but that just went through my mind.
That's
It's
on
important.
page 5 you were just looking at?
I was on, pardon?
Yeah, page 5.
You've got that.
Page 5.
Okay.
That's not important, really. I wondered when you've listed the audiences, I didn't notice anywhere, not that I think you've missed it, but I didn't notice it in here. It doesn't say anything about, Palomar or other colleges, CAUS, USM, weren't specifically listed, or the school districts themselves.
Under community,
Huh?
under community list schools.
Oh, well, okay, you do have schools, I missed that, but I was looking specifically for
Yeah,
Palomar and colleges, and that's why I guess I missed it, thank you.
We can get
We can
more
expand that.
specific there, sure.
Yeah, CSU.
Yeah,
looks
it's-
at
Went through my mind at the time. Then on page 8, where we are talking about maximizing the use of our recycled water, and this I think is a really interesting thing that would go with Jim's idea about the Meadowlark tour, is we're recycling 74% of our water, our wastewater. Okay, that's a significant amount. But what I think a lot of people don't understand is why we aren't using it in our own community. And I think there's a way that we need to explain why our recycled water is going to Carlsbad or Olevenhain or the flower fields and not here. And the understanding of the beauty of the connection with Olevenhain, because that takes care of the water at the lower elevations. I think that we need to, I don't want a big discussion of it, but I want them, because that's a question that comes up and it might be in the Q&A.
That sounds like
Why don't we have
another Q&A.
recycle? And in the process of recycling, I know that's where we're headed, but more with direct, I think we also need to answer that question about why don't I have purple
Why we're a
pipes?
wholesale agency.
So,
Everyone wants to know, well, why don't I have purple pipes? And it's not, you know, purple pipes don't mean you have the water. And
Okay.
so part of it's elevation and part of it is that you would need to develop purple pipe infrastructure?
I
Yeah,
believe
we
so.
can
and
go
you-
through that pretty easy.
But I'm only that to staff to describe it,
Yeah.
because
Okay.
I simply know that we don't have it.
Okay.
And all the
And
reasons.
the things that you're hearing out in the community, those are golden for us in terms of developing messages and Q&A. That's really important. And that kind of feedback going forward, when we're long gone and Chris is laboring away every day, let him know those things that you're hearing out there. Because that'll be adopted, and then all of you will have a good answer to whatever the question was that came up.
Great. And you know that at the Water Summit, and I also saw it at another thing where they were talking about those homes that are being built with the gray water recycling houses. I don't know that that has to be a part of this, but I think it's something we should look into, because I think we're going to see questions on it. And
Questions have been coming up a lot.
a
on
lot,
gray water
and the
usage.
BIA, I know, is, at this point, all developers are looking at all these processes, and it's been in the media. So I think we need to be kind of on top of it.
Yeah.
What does it cost, how do we promote it, what does it mean? I don't know what the answer is at this point, just put that under your radar screen at this time.
Kind of,
Yes.
as you were talking, you kind of were getting the creative juices going, and this is a good point. We didn't really, when we met with them in the beginning, we didn't really give them this instruction, but we really don't have anything on there on kind of a presentation or some more visionary things or more master plan update.
Where we're going.
Those kinds of things, yeah. So
Mhm.
that might be something we may want to, I know we're kind of in it's 10:30 or so, the hour, not quite 11. And maybe we
Yeah.
want to add that.
There's enough that we can add this into the PowerPoint. It's alternatives, where are we going, what's the future hold?
Yeah.
Well,
Okay,
and I
that's
just,
easy enough.
I just got back from a little brief this morning at the Water Authority, and one of the things they were talking about was the direct potable and the huge percentage of change and that's going for it. And one of the things, and I'll see if I can just get you the survey. They did a survey and they took specifically the people who they know are anti-direct, definitely. And they had these little groups and they did their presentations and saw the change. And it was amazing that it was a huge shift, I'm not gonna remember the exact numbers, from those who were adamant against it, who were saying, okay, I understand the process, and then the ones who were saying, I don't like it, but I realize it's coming. Very interesting to be proactive ourselves in presenting that, even though it's gonna be down the road. So I just got that today, and that was, really, that is incredible. Interesting enough, do you know the three target groups? Seniors, Republicans, and Latinos. That's the three groups that are most against direct potable. Okay, how interesting.
And we've seen that research and involved in it, particularly Patsy.
I was a co-principal investigator for a research project last year on direct potable reuse. And I can tell you that people, when you ask about indirect or direct in terms of support, the right-of-way support for indirect was about 62%, but direct was more like 40%. And this is in a telephone survey that was done in the city of San Diego and in the Santa Clara Valley Water District service area. However, when you gave people information about the health and safety of the water, the support for direct went to 56%. And then you provided lots of other information, and it really only brought it up to 59%. So health and safety was critical. Now, the focus groups that you're talking about were done just very recently here in San Diego by the Water Authority, and one of our partners on the research project did the focus groups. And you're right, there were 4 groups. And
the Chaldeans or something.
Yeah, the Chaldeans were one because of the folks out in Padre Dam wanted to know more about that group of people. Again, pretty overwhelmingly not for potable reuse. They specifically tried to find people who were opposed to potable reuse to participate in these 4 focus groups. The thing to remember about focus groups, not generalizable to the population at large. This was 4 groups of people who had about an hour and a half to 2 hours to spend talking about it, which most people, don't or don't want to. But what they found was a shift from 2-to-1 opposed to 2-to-1 supporting at some level of support.
Right, and
Yeah.
that where I was, and I know it's one poll and it's a small number, but what I was just thinking is, it's coming, and it would be nice for us to be proactive and without pushing it down anyone's throat. And I think, Mike's comment of getting the module to recycle, and that leads to indirect.
I think
Just a
that
thought.
one of the ways you can do that pretty effectively, and you mentioned diversification, is show where you're getting your water from now, and you've already diversified, and then show where in 20 years you expect some of it to come from, and start including that slice of water that might be from potable reuse. And that's a way to start talking about it. So maybe we're not using it today, but we're not stopping with diversification with what we've done today. We've done a lot, but we're not stopping. We're continuing to move toward the future, and here's what our future holds. And that's a way for you to talk with people about it in your area, regardless of whether it's on the drawing board right now or not.
Oh, that's great.
Well, I think that's an interesting process, because we can be talking about all kinds of leading-edge technology that may not come here for a while. And you talked about gray water systems being put in by builders. There's other things like that. When are homes going to start getting 2 water systems, one for purple pipe and one for regular drinking water? There's all kinds of technologies, and the topics as well. We have to be careful about that, because when you say direct potable reuse and then define it, it scares the heck out of people.
That's what I said, I don't want to be aggressive.
So we want to be careful that we're saying this is the water universe. But it's an interesting topic, and that could be a topic for your internal and external newsletter topics. It could be a module for your PowerPoint presentations and so forth.
Yeah, I was more suggesting, I understand we got to talk about recycling water, of course, but I was actually kind of more suggesting more specific to where's Vallecitos going? We're going through our master plan update now. There's going to be some things that are going to come out of that.
That module might follow after we have that next workshop in August or September about all of those things.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's where you're right. That's where you're gonna give us direction. Here's where we want to be in 20 years.
Exactly. Cool. Then,
I'm working on it.
there was a
You know,
comment,
hard
I think it's
time.
on page 11, it was about the cost of delivering water, and I just wondered on the top, it says, rising costs for energy definitely affect the cost of delivering water to you. I just thought what would be interesting for people is they had a concept of just saying it rising costs. It would be interesting if they knew that, 25% of the cost of your water when you turn it on is energy. I think that will stick more than just the statement energy
Yes.
costs are rising. If
Yeah.
there's percentages or a little whatever to show that in a simple way. And the same thing for upgrading the aging pipelines. When I hear that, I kind of just accept it. Okay, we have aging pipelines. But to me, it means a lot more if someone says, do you know you have 75 miles of pipe that is now 118 years old? or when I saw that flyover of the pressure points on the line, the leaks anticipated, it really made you sit back and you go, oh my God, I have no idea. It's kind of like when saying the earthquake will be here tomorrow. It's only when the ground starts to tremble that you really get nervous. So I just wondered if there were simple little facts, whether they're in what you present or they're like backup information for us as a speaker, because I think those are some of the ways in our presentations that you can connect with them. That was just an idea. And then, I already talked about that one. I think I got it. I made those little comments and that was kind of great. Thank you.
That's good
for all
info.
that,
Thank you.
guys. Also, can someone explain to me exactly, probably you, Dr. Sinella, the difference in what Facebook is trying to do and what Twitter's? You said they're very different. I know Facebook sort of. What is it that's so different about them? in
Well,
focus?
Facebook is very much of a social activity. Primarily, it started out that way, and it continues to be that way, except for companies, both profit-making companies and different organizations like yours have entered that space by talking about things that are as community-oriented as they can make them. And that's a medium that can expand and keep conversations going and everything. Twitter is changing as well. You can now do photos and things, but Twitter is you only get 140 characters to send a message. And you can have a conversation on issues, and you can also use Twitter to steer somebody to somewhere else. Go to our website and get the details on this information. So it's a much more quick and ready type of thing.
And direct.
Very direct, and you can follow, if you have a favorite athlete or a favorite movie star, you can follow them because they all have Twitter handles. And they're generating a lot of the traffic, and you'll see people get into trouble on Twitter as well for those very reasons if they happen to be famous people. But that's the major difference. Twitter is very short. It's not meant for community building in the same way, where Facebook is very much that way. And you'll see that reflected in your own posts as well, in the subject matter in there.
Obviously, I'm not really onto Twitter, but I should understand it, and I just didn't. Thank you. Any other comments? Questions?
What is a Candellan?
Chaldean?
Oh, Chaldean.
No,
Chaldean. You know,
Chaldean.
I wanted to ask that, and I'm sitting there with all these other directors, and they all act like they know it from that. I bet none of you know.
What's a Chaldean?
Mideast Catholic, Mideast Christians, right?
It's
Yeah.
it's a demographic.
Oh, it's a demographic. Okay, I thought it was some new moniker.
It's a demographic, and I think it's, is it like Russian origin or something like that?
No, I think it's Mideast.
Yeah.
Okay.
Middle East?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was like a, new millennium, the new millennium.
Well, obviously, they did. Nobody even blinked their eye at. They knew that, but it was like, I'm not going to ask that. They could just tell.
Well,
Thank you, Dennis.
I think what we'll do now is we've got some more good feedback from you, so, we'll take a good last shot at the communication plan. Like I said, Chris has already got all the different chapters, and we may add chapters that you won't use, but in a blue moon, it might be something I use, or James uses, or whatever. But again, keep in mind, you're gonna have like a book of different chapters. You'll have the entrance that's always gonna be the same, and then you'll have the thing you're gonna talk about. We'll have the duplicate in print, because some places won't have some place for you to show PowerPoint. Some places will have boards, so that's where we're working towards, and I think we've got some pretty good feedback today to really tighten it up. But again, what you'll get is well into the process, using this style design, all these type of things, and then you'll have time to play with them, change them, say too much, too little, whatever the case may be. I think we're good.
All right.
Okay.
Then we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.